Good evening and welcome to News Sources, your home for more than just analysis, but context, razor-sharp contextualization of stories of our time. Starting tonight, we're opening a forum for debate and good old pushback and fair, frank discussions. My name is James Smart.
Tonight we reset the news agenda. We give you a chance to interrogate how we do news, a show that allows you to walk into our newsrooms and address how we headline news and break them. My name is Dennis Al-Shabab.
Welcome. First news struck. The tribunal set up to look into a 200 million shillings bribery allegations against High Court Judge Philip Tunoi resumed proceedings today with a cross-examination of whistleblower Geoffrey Kiplagat. Kiplagat had earlier filed an affidavit claiming he facilitated the issuance of the bribe. Tunoi had initially denied any knowing Kiplagat, but the NSIS recording later showed that the two had exchanged several text messages. Elsewhere, within the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy Code continued to widen as Machakos Senator Johnston Muthama and Siaya Senator James Orengo confirmed that indeed there was a memorandum of understanding between Code leader Raila Odinga and Code principal Kalonzo Musyoka. Now that would ensure Kalonzo is the Code flag bearer for 2017. The two senators, however, said Code principal Moses Wetangula was not part of the original MOU. Ford Kenya Party is yet to respond to this latest development. And now Kenyan Christian and Muslim religious leaders today expressed their disappointment over atheist society registration and thus recognition. The leaders argue the constitution in its preamble acknowledges God and so cannot in the same breath sanction a group that denies the existence of God. They termed the group's intention for push of abolition of religious studies in schools as an act of aggression that should not be taken lightly. This comes after the Attorney General officially registered atheists in Kenya as a legal society. All right, now we're happy to welcome you to join the conversation by tweeting us on at James Smart, at Dennis Onsarigo, or at KTN News, hashtag News Sources. We are joined by two gentlemen, Zao Musau, a career journalist here at the Standard newspaper, and Oruko Ibrahim of the Star newspaper. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks.
Tonight we kick off with the ICC Thanksgiving prayer event in Nakuru this Saturday. We are asking you, is the Jubilee leadership heading to Nakuru to dance on the graves of the post-election violence victims, or this is a victory dance against those who wanted Kenya's number 1 and 2 jailed? Ruko, your take.
Okay, thank you very much, Dennis and James. Actually, there's nothing new about what's going to happen in Nakuru. This is not the pioneer prayer rally we have seen. There have been prayer rallies before, after they were, of course, named in 2010. We had prayer rallies, and we have seen rallies throughout. In fact, when we had the time when the prosecutor, the court admitted the recanted evidence, we saw a situation where prayer rallies reloaded. So what we are seeing in Nakuru is nothing new, really. It is just a continuation of what I could call a charade on the part of Jubilee leadership in trying to.
Anything new? I think it must be new because two of our Kenyans own out of the ICC. It must be new. I mean, these prayers are important.
Well, it's new, but I'm a little bit surprised that it is taking place in the first place, because I noticed the president he sort of sent two statements at the same time. In the first statement, after the ICC verdict came out, he never mentioned anything about the prayer rallies. But in the second statement, which came shortly thereafter, he talked about now the prayer rally in Nakuru. It's a little bit, again, like I said, a little bit surprising now that in the first statement, the president said there is a partial victory. So it is not yet over, especially when it comes to victims. This is not a time now to just dumping and saying this is a victory for us, and yet there are victims of the situation. So it's a time for reconciliation, time for healing, to start looking forward, not now backwards where we have come from.
James,
I presume that they should celebrate. I think this is something that has been on their mind for about 6 or so years. They possibly the ones who feel the pain of going to The Hague, every now and then. They possibly, and their minders would imagine that ICC has been such a huge distraction for them and their government that they could not even possibly perform. So from where I sit, I think that they can claim legitimately that it's a win of some sort, but now they have to struggle with moralizing the whole issue of, well, fine, the question of, are we dancing on the graves of the victims of ICC? Were they there in the first place? Did this country even care about it? Did we as journalists put the witnesses or the victims straight central of our coverage? I think this is a time to discuss those questions. I'm not sure we did. I'm not sure we did a good job in terms of telling the stories of the victims and the witnesses and how the cases progressed. But politically, it's something that is very potent, and I would not be surprised if it is used as a political.
Ibrahim, some quarters say that this could have been a chance for media houses to project and give a voice to the victims of the 2007 post-election violence, because there's a feeling out there that puppet suspects turned into victims and victims turned into perpetrators. Your take?
Yeah, and probably you're right, but to me, this is a question of justice. Justice is always for the victor. The winners will always have the way. It didn't start today. We had the Nuremberg trials where we saw the victor's justice. As James has rightly put, there were no victims in the first place the moment the two guys captured power. Then number two, I think it was a very tricky situation for the Kenyan media, in the sense that we are not used to a situation, some sort of a culture shock. We are not used to in a situation where a prince is taken to jail. You can imagine a police commissioner being taken to court. These things were unimaginable in the minds of many Kenyans and the media, and we were not able to know how to handle, how to prosecute, how to report on what happened at the ICC. So we turned the case into a political tool. In many respects, I think there's nothing to discuss about here. We rather accept and move on.
So there must be something to discuss here, because remember, this trial has been on for the last 7 years now. These cases have been dogging us for the last 7 years. I mean, if you go to our libraries now, the volumes and volumes of stuff there touching on ICC, it's enormous. Where does this leave us as media going forward?
No, there are a lot of lessons to learn. I think the Kenyan media did pretty very well. I think I even saw in one of the judges' ruling, I think Justice Frem, there's something he said about the Kenyan media, how pervasive we are. He said, I am surprised that the evidence against the deputy president is only exclusive, relying on witnesses. And yet the Kenyan media is so pervasive, they would have had an idea about route of making incitement to the Kalenjin and so on and so forth. But more important, I just wanted to say on Saturday's rally, there is the aspect of Kenyans should be able to control the narrative of Saturday rally. I mean, they are the ones who are going to attend those rallies. Those two gentlemen will be there.
I need to cut you short. James, you have to control us next.
Well, brilliant. Well, it's an open secret is that the ICC cases were expertly used that would be against the 2013 polls towards some political ends. Now, Jubilee Coalition was in fact launched in 2012 December at Afra Stadium, where the devil of the day and the entire campaign was the International Criminal Court. Now, that proved to be a masterstroke, as the court rivals had no response to the ICC blows. And my question tonight, Zao, can ICC be weaponized?
Weaponized, what do you mean?
Can ICC in fact be a political tool towards 2017?
Yes, it is possible. I mean, we have seen it work in the past. In 2013, we saw 2012, the same Afra Stadium, where the two gentlemen, against all expectations.
Against all odds, you'd say?
Yeah, against all odds, because it would be unimaginable that a person charged or indicted with crimes against humanity would actually offer himself or themselves to lead a country. And they did that, and Kenyans overwhelmingly accepted them. So it is possible. It's possible for it to happen again. It is possible. We have not. I mean, you have seen Kenyans are capable of so many things.
Haruko, here's the thing. Just as you put your head around it, the host that took William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta to the State House, in many ways was ICC. that is the glue that puts them together. Is that horse dead or is still alive?
I think it's still alive. And we have seen it in the sense that from the, now after the case has ended, there's some guys who are supposed to be taken there for witness tampering. And now we are seeing everything coalescing around this, what is it called? The summons around the three.
The summons.
Yeah. So it is giving them, and even the AU has actually come in. So in the event that there's nothing else to hold them together, I think they'll stretch it to the outer limit so that they can use it.
Dennis, 18 months, 16 months to the election, 15 months, whatever it is, can IC be sustained as a whole political conversation?
It can. It was sustained up until 2012. It can. It was sustained 3 years before elections in 2013. It can again. 18 months is a very short time.
Yeah.
And remember, this is a chance for the Jubilee government to say we had this destruction on our way, but now we're ready to build this country. But they must keep on reminding they have defeated the devil, so they have to do this.
But gentlemen, what exactly would they be saying? I mean, Zao, it's very clear that it was used in 2012 and 2013. It was very clear there is an adversary. We're facing such a huge, problem, right in front of us. The problem has been killed. What possibly could be the message?
No, you have noticed since Tuesday last week, the narrative actually seems to be continuing. That the African Union, like he says, has said, no, you must as well end the case against these Kenyan, the guys who are accused of tampering with witnesses. So the message could still be the same. It depends on how you package it and say the same message of those guys out there, out to finish us and so on and so forth. In my opinion, I think it is very much possible because the ICC is fresh in Kenyans' minds. And Kenyans, listen to what their leaders say. I think it is very much possible.
I with that gullible because
we are not very innovative, politically so. And in the absence of something else to hold us together, ICC remains the sore thumb, or is it the sore thumb in this game?
Yes.
In the sense that one of it was, we were told very clearly that there was a person who tried to stop us from taking over power because of ICC. We were fixed because somebody.
How strong is that message, though?
Of course, it's a lie. Of course, it's a lie. It's a big lie. It's a big lie, a very big one. But power is sweet, James. Power is very sweet.
So if
I've never had power. Have you had power?
You don't have, but I have. I have.
You have some power.
Even sitting here is power. Sitting here is power. But power is sweet,
yes.
And if it's necessary that ICC is rejigged, maybe to advance their course for 2017, I think it is important. Nobody wants to go out of power. And by the way, the reason why it remains very important that ICC will be an issue is that you must know none of these guys is free.
The mere
Actually, Uhuru, President Uhuru, so to say, he was discharged on the premise that the case could be reopened in future. In the latest case, the deputy president has not been set free, because the door was left open for a possible re-prosecution.
Yes.
So you can imagine a possibility of an adversarial leader in Kenya.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Dennis.
What was meant to be a stumbling block for Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto in the end turned to be the glue that brought them together and propelled them to power. Gentlemen, was it a win for these two?
Yes, there's a win because actually going to jail is not a very good thing if you are a prince. Uhuru is a prince, really. So the prospect of a jail term is very painful. So for him it's a win, for Ruto it's a win. But of course there's a question that James asked about moralizing these issues. We still have a lot of unanswered questions revolving around the victims of the post-election violence, that they are in government and they are doing nothing to ensure that justice is delivered to even
Zao,
the smallest of the guys.
Zao, from where you sit as a journalist, is it a good opportunity now for the government to make sure that justice for the victims is addressed? Because from all quarters it appears prayers have been answered. God has listened to the prayers of the two leaders in Jubilee government. Is it also time for prayers for the victims also to be answered by the state?
I think it's a grand opportunity that we find ourselves as a country, let alone the two leaders, to reconcile and move on as a people, having in mind the plight of the victims of post-election violence. I say that because I saw in Justice Judge Chile Oboy Osuji's opinion, he had a very nice, things to say about Kenya, and saying Kenya is such a great country. You have an opportunity. You cannot have recurrent post-election violence after every other time someone is defending his presidency, or you are running again for presidency. So it is an opportunity, of course, that ICC has given the country. In the first place, we had that opportunity, because you will remember that we never went to the ICC, the first priority. It was not our first stop. We had 2 years, to do something.
James, all right. I'd like just to bring some context into this. The Attorney General Githu Muigai, had some choice words for Fatu Bensouda. Let's just, have a listen to what the AG had to say over the weekend.
I want also to draw your attention to the fact that other than hosting Mr. Ocampo himself, when Ms. Bensouda was elected, and I want to remind you, elected with the overwhelming support of the African Union, including the Republic of Kenya, I invited her to Nairobi. She came. She met the highest leadership of our country. She toured this country. She went to Naivasha. She went to Nakuru. She interviewed displaced persons. I don't think that, to my mind, this is evidence of non-cooperation. In the specific 2 cases, we gave documents after documents after documents, and I want you to know, as late as 2 weeks ago, in the case that has now been dropped, we were still submitting to the court documents. I don't consider that non-cooperation. I therefore want to finish by saying the Republic of Kenya takes grave exception to the attempt by the prosecution of the International Criminal Court to, in the manner that it has done, to call into question the integrity, the commitment, and the respect of the rule of law of the government of Kenya.
All right, a failed prosecution. Very strong words from the AG. Very well spoken. Puts very clear, say we contributed up to the last day, up to the previous week, you were submitting documents to the ICC. They cannot possibly say that we are the ones who are trying to stop them. Zao, you've covered ICC from the beginning. Level of cooperation of the Kenyan government, pain would see that, well, the Kenyan government here and there would say, well, we're not interested in this case, or taking too long to respond to their submissions.
The fact of the matter is that the AG, and he knows it because he has been on this from the very start, that the Kenyan government has cooperated with ICC in certain aspects, but in certain aspects of the investigations, they have not been able to cooperate the way the prosecution thought the capacity of Kenyan government could cooperate or could give. And we have seen those exchanges in court. The prosecutor filed a motion of non-cooperation against the Kenyan state, and we saw how it went. So to say that Kenya has cooperated fully when he knows that there are pending issues that have been running in court is really to mislead, I think, the Republic.
Yeah? Mislead the Republic for you?
No, you mislead the Republic in the sense that Kenyans know that there are certain information the ICC sought, and they never got that information from the Kenyan government.
All right. Dennis?
Have they cooperated? I think they have. They tried, but they have also placed many obstacles. This was a high political stakes game played both by the International Criminal Court and the Kenyan court, James.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. This, obviously, as we wound up the whole IC issue, brought William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta to a new level of friendship, romance. Yeah, it's going to be impossible to break them up now that finally the thing that brought them together, they've gone through it together, and now they can come out the other side and say, we went through this thing together. It's going to be impossible, Rico, to get these two gentlemen, out of office through their friendship. It's going to be next to impossible, wouldn't it be? If you're facing them.
Of course, it's true to the extent where power is sweet, That power.
When were you in power?
I'm seated here, so power is nice.
Right.
People want to be here.
Yeah.
But power is nice. Because of ICC, they captured power. So to the extent, I think it's there are two people here. One is a major and one is a minor. One is a dominant figure, the other one is a...
But they're good friends.
Yes. But that's...
Nevertheless.
No, we're talking about power.
Yes.
So as long as the junior partner is willing to play ball, life will be continued.
Is that your analysis as well, Zao?
No, not really, but I agree with you that there's a certain form of bromance, you call it,
Yeah.
which has been shaped by this ICC process between these two gentlemen, the president and the deputy. How long it will last, I've no idea. I hear you say that they are going to dance on the graves of the victims. I've never seen people dancing on the graves. I'm very keen. I hope I will be proven right that they will not dance in the...
Yeah. That is...
I think it's a good bond between the president and his deputy. This has been going on. I mean, white shirts, red ties. It has been going on for the last 3 years now, and
They can keep at it.
Yeah, people have been saying it can't last, but it's lasting. And again, they have walked out of ICC free men. It's a chance again to run with this for another 18 months and go back to the ballot. People will decide what happens next. Yes.
But I think there's also something that we are not seeing. Even within this camaraderie they have been having, we have seen a situation where the other partners have been portrayed as the more corrupt, you know. You see? So if you certainly take the analysis of people who have been told to step aside or to be sacked in relation to corruption, you will take it to one side. It will slide towards one particular end. So it could be a form of forcing somebody to play ball, you know. You cannot rule it out.
Yeah, there is quite a bit.
Let's see how it goes. I mean, let's see how it goes. And as I said, we have 18 months to the next elections. Zhao, you had something to say?
I just want to say
10
that
seconds.
the ICC process, there has been so many lessons we have learned as journalists, as Kenyans, as leaders. And I think it's time we reflect on these things and try and see what good we can pick from these processes.
One thing that you can pick out of this process, one thing.
Oh, many. I can't pick one. I mean, there are so many things right now to pick one. I mean, one thing.
Top on the list.
No. One thing I've realized is that the state is very powerful. Just one. The state
is very powerful.
Is quite powerful, and we have seen it throughout the process.
News of a bank going under on social media caused an entire bank to collapse. Depositors ran to the bank and withdrew up to 6 billion a day, so the story goes. But Chase Bank was not the first bank in recent months to go under. It is preceded by other banks. Question tonight is, what went wrong? Tonight we are joined by Manua Magoma, a student and a financial expert, and Eric Mbuk, a journalist with Bloomberg News. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, were we expecting this again?
To be honest, no. I think it was very unexpected. There had been problems with Chase Bank. And Chase Bank problems started way back in October last year when Imperial Bank went under. Between October 13th and December 31st, Chase Bank lost about 30 billion shillings in depositors' money. Basically, people who had money went into the bank to withdraw their money. And I don't mean the normal Mwananchi persons or the big investors who are a bit worried about the impact of the tier 2 or tier 3 banks and whether what happened at Imperial Bank was also happening at the other tier 1 or tier 2 banks. And that's where Chase Bank's problems started then.
Eric, Dubai Bank, Imperial Bank, we did not see this coming?
Yeah, the three banks you've mentioned have actually gone under. We've had three banks being placed under statutory management within the last 6 to 9 months. And in most cases, most of them were not clearly expected, at least in the eyes of the public. Now, looking at Chase Bank in particular, this was precipitated by the bank restating its profits, or rather restating its financial results for 2015. And the key item which was restated was insider loans, which is loans to directors and loans to employees. So previously the bank had said that insider loans were about 3 billion shillings, and then that was restated by an additional 10 billion shillings. Same day the results were restated, we had the group managing director of the bank stepping aside or resigning, the CEO, the chairman also resigned on the same day. Soon after that, we started seeing comments on Twitter and other social media platforms saying that that depositors should take their money out of Chase Bank because the depositors are basically losing confidence in the bank, and people ran in to take out their money following the experiences that they witnessed after Imperial Bank went under.
Eric, talking about depositors running to get their money out of the bank. James, did social media set up Chase Bank to be chased away from the banking industry?
Well, I wish there's a way we can, physically somehow see how the trajectory of when the first social media post went through, then how did people start, withdrawing their money and that sort of thing, and the sequence of events. I think there's something that, from where I sit, and this is, not from Manua and Eric, just a layman's view of the whole thing. I think there's something that much more complex than what we're being told. I think there's a much deeper problem with not only this bank, but somehow how some financial dealings and the whole system has been set out. I think it's a good time for us to help us understand. Maybe Eric can help us understand how is it possible that journalists or us must have missed this story to tell the public for a long time so that we can see the signs.
Yeah, it's true that Chase Bank were reporting their results at a time when we refer to as earnings season. So there are lots of companies reporting their results, and due to the huge volume of companies and banks which are reporting their results, most journalists focused on the profit before tax or the profit after tax number, the loans, the deposits, and the net interest income numbers. Now the story of what led to the collapse of these banks was found in other places. For instance, the bad loans, the insider loans, and other things which journalists did not focus on at the time because there was a huge volume of companies and banks which are reporting results at the same time.
I think I beg to differ. First, I don't think the collapse was because of the reportings. I think the collapse of Chase Bank began way earlier. And when we are being told that there was a run on the bank on the Wednesday, on the 5th, was it 5th of April, it was not true. The run happened much earlier. Mm-hmm. The amount of money that depositors withdrew from Chase Bank on that one day was about 7 billion shillings. Insiders claim is about 1.5 million shillings per minute through Pesa Mfukoni. Wow. That's the amount of money.
Say that again?
1.5 million shillings per minute.
Hang to that thought. Because all this situation about the bank has led some pundits to point to a possible banking crisis, they say. That this is coming when Kenyans starting to doubt that if actually our financial institutions, our money is safe at the banks at all. If we can withdraw, is it?
1.5 million per minute.
1.5 million per minute. Can you believe that number, Eric?
I don't think we necessarily have a banking crisis.
Yes.
What we have is more of a confidence crisis. Now, the banking industry is partly based on trust. So once depositors lose trust in a financial institution, then the very foundation on which that institution stands becomes shaky. And this is what happened in the case of Imperial Bank and Chase Bank. So once depositors lost confidence in the institution, in Chase Bank in this case, so everybody who was able to got into the bank and took out as much money as they could. Yes.
Yeah, got the money. But who should we blame? Looking for a devil here. Tell us. Point us to one.
I'll tell you. First of all, there's no crisis in the banking sector.
Absolutely nothing.
None whatsoever. Yeah. And I think every Kenyan putting their money in the bank should not be worried about any crisis in the banking. So let's put that aside.
Yeah.
In the specific case of Chase Bank, I think it was a case of 3 groups of people who were robbed on that day. The depositors were robbed because now they cannot get their money. The people who work lost, some of them are not able to earn their money. And some shareholders have also in the process of being robbed of their shareholding. And the problem was a case of people at the board level trying to fight on who has more muscle or who has more toys than the other. It's as simple as that. I mean, all the documents that I've seen until right now all point to a case where there was a power struggle in the bank that went out of hand. And before they were able to control it, because financial institutions are starting to adopt technology, the technology ran ahead of them, not social media, but the technology itself. So when people are able to withdraw 1.5 million on their phones, so you can just imagine people not going into the banking hall. On my phone, I'm able to withdraw 1.5 million per minute. I don't need to go to the banking hall, and that's what they are not anticipating.
Dennis, were you able to pull out of your money from Chase
No, I
Bank?
did not have an account with Chase Bank, but I have an account to make here because the investigation has now been taken over by the police, and the banking fraud unit is now in charge of this investigation. And remember, the banking fraud unit has been accused of taking 80 million shillings from Josephine Kabura in NY Saga.
Yes.
I don't know how the banking fraud is going to investigate this.
Maybe Manuel has some
No, you
thoughts
see,
as we wind up this.
First of all, I think central bank itself has auditors who normally go in to audit banks when such incidences happen. And it may not necessarily be the anti-fraud unit that may do it, but the auditors of the central bank that who might be able to do it. But the second thing, and I think what everybody needs to ask, is where are the correct audited reports of Chase Bank? I can say that they do not exist anywhere. And if anybody has seen them, let them put them on. And by audited reports, I mean signed by the board, signed by the chairman of the board, by the group MD, by the CEO, and by the auditors. All those signatures in one document. That document so far, I've been told, does not exist anywhere.
Eric, I think the biggest challenge is what happens to the money owed to depositors in this bank. What happens?
Okay, so after the bank was placed under receivership, it's now under the management of a state corporation known as KDIC, Kenya Depositors Insurance Corporation. And so far what the receiver manager said is that the depositors should fill in claim forms, basically give in your personal details and state how much you had in the you had in your bank accounts at Chase Bank. After which I think the reimbursement process will begin. We saw this happen in the case of Imperial Bank, and in the case of Imperial Bank, depositors were refunded up to 1 million shillings. Though the current regulations say that in the event of a bank going under, you get reimbursed up to 100,000 shillings. Though in the case of Imperial, it went up to 1 million shillings because there was enough funds to cover up to that much.
All right, let me bring in another story. Tonight, Supreme Court Justice Philip Tunoi and his accuser Geoffrey Kiplagat had their day in court. Lawyer Fred Ngatia, representing the judge, spent the whole day destroying the position held and represented by Kiplagat in his damaging affidavit. It's still early days. Wheels of justice finally rolling. 200 million, we're told, Dennis, that was stashed, thrown in some Mercedes Benz somewhere.
I think the first challenge for the tribunal is the first challenge for Kiplagat is to sound as a credible witness.
Believability.
It has to be believed. So, but what Fred Ngati has done is tear into his credibility. He's not talking about whether money exchanged hands. He's not talking about if the judge's conduct is under question. He's just asking serious questions. Can you be believed? If you're saying a car has 4 doors, are we sure that it has 4 doors? They're saying, if you're saying you're posing as Nicholas Biwott, were you Nicholas Biwott then? Now you're Geoffrey Kiplagat. Yeah.
Manuel, you people deal with money, and I just want to say, this 200 million possible to be stashed and thrown in some wheel somewhere. I don't know what you think about that.
It's a difficult story. I mean, if you were to put that money in US dollars, it would be about 20 kilograms. If it was $100 bills of US dollars, it would be about 20 kilograms. If you put it in 1,000 Kenya shilling notes, it will be a bit probably heavier than that because of the number of notes that you would need to physically carry. And I think that's what probably people will start asking. I mean, did the guy was it in dollars or was it in Kenya shillings? And if it was in dollars or Kenya shillings, what currency and how heavy? And I think what is going to happen is somebody wanting to physically prove that the amount of money can physically fit in specific cases that might have been sworn in court earlier on.
Mm-hmm. Eric, when you tell this story for international audience, how do you place it? A judge, 200 million in a car, somewhere in a moving vehicle. How do you tell it for international audience?
Yeah, I agree with Manuel. The tribunal basically has its work cut out for it. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of details which which don't add up, and we'll have to wait and see how the tribunal brings out those details and their final findings.
Yeah, because then is the question, and Manuel.
But you know, the difficult thing to prove that, and there are two things that the tribunal will have to prove to show that the honorable justice received the money.
Yeah.
A, that the money actually left somebody's account, because 200 million is not money you keep under the bed. Well, maybe since last week people are putting money under their beds, but at that time 200 million is not money that you get under bed, so it must have left some account somewhere, and that's fairly easy to track. And B, it is also not money you walk into someone's farm and say, hey, I want to buy your farm, I've got 200 million shillings here. It probably also went through certain specific bank accounts. And those are the things that they will have to try and see and prove that did the money come from point A and go to point B.
Right. Across in Somalia, and that is where we start from tomorrow, a Somali-based journalist arrested in Kenya and extradited in 2014 was executed by a firing squad after he was accused of killing his 5 colleagues. Smart, that's where we start off tomorrow, talking about the Lade video released by Al-Shabab. Yes.
Absolutely. Interesting, this, perhaps you're calling it instant justice. The courts actually ordered for the firing of this journalist. Unorthodox means, as I'd just like to say. I don't know what you feel about it, Manuel.
You know, it's sad. At the end of the day, it's a life that has been lost. It's unfortunate that the circumstance under which the gentleman was killed was that he was either a spy or he killed his colleagues. You want to feel sympathetic, but at the same time, you also feel for the very number of Kenyans who've also lost their lives through Al-Shabab. Then some would get emotionally confused. But it's not always good to lose a life, whatever life it is.
Did you report that, Eric?
No, we didn't, but then life is precious, as Manwa said. This particular gentleman was a journalist. He ended up working for Andulus Radio, which is affiliated with Al-Shabab in Somalia. And after a while, he turned against his former colleagues and basically became a spy, luring his colleagues into places where they could then be assassinated by the Al-Shabab militia. And he went through the justice process, verdict was given, and he ended up being executed. That was the verdict.
Yeah, this is actually a picture that we can show you of, him being, tied in ropes, and the moments before, the journalists were there said that he struggled making his way to the execution pole. And then it's possibly would see some of these Somali, getting back into the picture, the government trying to, some sort of justice is working, some would say.
It's how you look at it. I mean, Al-Shabaab has taken shortcuts in killing its own, in killing people across in Somalia and in Kenya. And I think Somalia government decided also to take shortcuts. I mean, it was instant justice, like instant coffee. But again, there is a disturbing video online about Kenyan soldiers being
it's a 50-minute video.
Yeah, 48 minutes.
Yes.
Video
exactly.
of Kenyan soldiers, and others were captured alive, and think that's where we should start from tomorrow. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Smart.
All right. Final thoughts, Eric? The banking crisis, no banking crisis?
There's no banking crisis. It's a crisis of confidence. So let's hope that everything gets...
And who should fix it?
The central bank should fix it, and they've actually fixed it. On Sunday evening, the central bank governor did announce that they're setting up a facility under which any bank that requires cash, or what in financial circles is referred to as liquidity, will then go to the central bank, and they'll get as much liquidity as they require for as long as they require it. So that should be able to restore confidence in our banks and in our banking industry.
Manuel?
Kenyans should relax. The money is safe in the bank, but also it's upon bank managers to make sure that they report the correct figures, and also the owners on CBK to make sure that when they're auditing banks, they do a good job at it, because every month every bank has to report its figures to CBK. And at the end of the year, before you see the audits coming out in the newspapers at the end of March, usually CBK has already done its own audit and has its own records, which then they just do comparisons.
So it's not time for the mattress bank of Kenya yet?
No, it's not yet.
Smart. Let's see how the investigations pan out, and I hope that there's no next bank that will be chased out of the banking industry.
Well, that does it for us. Thank you very much, Eric Obok with Bloomberg, Manuel Magoma, and of course our very own Dennis Onsarigo. Today, from the field right inside. How does it feel, Dennis?
Amazing. I feel like a journalist born anew.
All right, my name is James March. Up next, the primetime news on KTN News. Thank you very much. We'll do this all over again, the same station, the same time.